Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, the future of fire in New Mexico. 3 U.S. Forest Service officials address last year's devastating fire season and talk about the agency's role in forest management in a changing climate.
I won't sugarcoat it. We are in a wildfire crisis. New Mexico is in a wildfire crisis. The good news, though, is that we know what to do about it.
And 2 educators explain the push to use creative arts to help more students grasp and excel in math and science. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm senior producer Lou DeVizio. Last month, the STEAM Center for Excellence opened in Rio Rancho. The goal is to introduce arts and creative thinking into the analytical world of science, technology, engineering, and math. In about 30 minutes, executive producer Jeff Proctor and 2 education leaders talk about their push to make this specialized field of study more accessible to students across the state. An updated COVID-19 vaccine is now available in New Mexico. The state health department is recommending every person 6 months and older gets the shot, even if they've already had a previous vaccine. At the bottom of the hour, we'll let you know how and where you can get the new buffer against the virus. But the majority of our show this week will be dedicated to a conversation you'll only see here on NMPBS. Our Land senior producer Laura Paskus sits down with 3 U.S. Forest Service officials, the first time the agency has made its leadership available since last year's historic fire season. In a 3-part discussion to better understand what went wrong last summer, Laura asks for an explanation of what led up to the devastating Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire and the Cerro Pelado fire.
Thank you, Lou. Joining me around the table for this 3-part conversation are Southwestern Forester Michiko Martin, Santa Fe National Forest Supervisor Sean Sanchez, and Dennis Carroll, Santa Fe National Forest Fuels Program Manager. Thank you all for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Laura.
So there is no easy way to start this conversation, so let's just jump in. Michiko, 3 prescribed fire projects in New Mexico in 2022 that turned into 3 wildfires. Let's start with the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire, 341,000 acres. What went wrong last winter and spring?
Yeah, last year was an absolutely devastating year for wildfires and fires here in New Mexico. Certainly a year that we would never, ever want to repeat. And you're right that we had 3 prescribed fires that escaped under circumstances which, well, of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but when we apply that hindsight, circumstances which were just absolutely unpredictable. My colleague Dennis here is an expert, longtime expert in fire behavior, and all things fire. And I'd love to invite him, Laura, if that's all right, to talk a little bit about what happened in Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon and Cerro Pelado.
Yeah, Dennis.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Michiko. So first I'm going to start out by just my apologies and sympathies to the people in northern New Mexico for everything that they went through with the tragedy of these fires. I need to say that. And I've been thinking about this, like Michiko said, I've been part of this for a long time. I've been thinking about this for a long time. The story that comes to mind, and I'll be brief, is how I started my career. And I started in the early 2000s, in 2002. The people that were before me and kind of overlapping with me, the largest fire those folks saw was like 10,000 acres. It was a big fire. That was the slideshow that they had, their experiences that they had in their mind, and then moving forward into 2000 in the drought that started in the late 90s in the West and is still perpetuating into now. Their experience that they had, they got surprised. They went through an evolution, through a portal, a learning lesson with Cerro Grande and the tragedy that happened here 23 years ago. My career has been in drought for 20 plus years. My experiences and my experience with the fire behavior are as such that that's how you base your actions off of, whether it's wildfire, prescribed fire, or planned. I feel what we went through in this last year, and then not just last year, but over the course of the last few years, the slideshow is not good enough. And what we're experiencing out there under prescribed fire conditions, under wildfire conditions, we're going through another portal. We're going through another evolution. Just like we learned from Cerro Grande and all the changes that came with that, we're very serious about what changes need to come with moving forward in the timing of the wildfire crisis strategy and the tragedy that happened here in northern New Mexico. conditions are changing. Fire is very dynamic. We need to learn from it. We will continue to learn from it, but we need to keep building our experience, and it's been very different. Last year I saw fire behavior I've never seen before in my career.
Yeah. So I remember on April 6th, last spring was horrible, even here in Albuquerque, dry, windy. And I remember on April 6th, when I got that press release from the Forest Service saying that Las Despensas had been declared the Hermit's Peak wildfire. Can you talk about those days and what that felt like and what was happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a very interesting spring. We had a lot of late rounds of moisture that built up the snowpack and brought in moisture through February and March. The district was looking at particular windows for this Las Despensas area, and within, I think it was towards the middle of March and towards the end of March, within 2 weeks of April 6th, there was moisture there, and it was too wet to do things. I think what really caught people by surprise, and it's reflective in some of the data, the stats from the weather, of how rapidly things changed and came into a hot, dry, windy pattern. This is April 6th, you mentioned. It's the beginning of the month. They're trying to catch this prescribed fire window soon after these moisture events to meet objectives and be between, like we are in the spring, between winter and summer and prescribed fire season and then entering into fire season. It's always a challenging time. The weather conditions we experienced, the driest on record for April and May, and the fourth hottest in April and May. And it leads to that transition of that moisture. And what we're dealing with is weather, right? Weather changes day to day. And these folks had a 3 to 4 day forecast. That's typically what we depend on for a window to get a 2-3 day project done. But what couldn't be predicted is what was coming, what we didn't know was coming in the rest of April and the rest of May, and how rapidly things deteriorated with those conditions.
So everyone knows, Sean, everyone knows the climate is changing. I mean, even for someone like me who has only been in New Mexico a few decades, I feel the forests are different. I see how they are different. The science certainly is telling us a lot about what's happening. But in 2022, do you think that the agency was taking climate change seriously?
I believe when we look back and going back to April 5th, we didn't know what we didn't know. And that was actually one of the findings from the review that occurred, is what that we couldn't stay complacent or rest on our laurels, is that we needed to really look at the changing climate. And as Dennis described, just the extreme weather conditions and how that is being driven by a changing climate, and so it's important for us to look at that, and that's one of the key things that we're doing different now in our planning, is making sure that we're having the most recent science, the most up-to-date modeling, that we're really putting every type of predictive service into place, and having that for situational awareness, because you're right, our forests are in crisis. 100 years of fire suppression, and then you add on top of that these extreme weather events that are making it hotter, drier. It's this recipe for disaster, and unfortunately that's what we saw last year. Yeah,
so the Cerro Pelado fire in the Jemez also ignited in the spring of 2022, and the investigation that was just released in July showed that wildfire also grew from a prescribed burn, a pile burn that had been done in the winter of 2022. What went wrong there?
I think that's a great example of not realizing, just as Dennis described, the extremely changing conditions. Again, going back to like April 5th, before that, we wouldn't have thought that one of our prescribed pile burns that we had completed in January and February, that it would pop up in April.
After many snow events.
After numerous snow events on top of it, it'd pop up, but it popped up because of these extreme climate conditions. That getting to the winds. Like everybody knows how windy it was. I remember sitting in on the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon, the briefings that were going on, and the incident meteorologists and the fire behavior analysts are saying, there will be textbooks and history books written about these days right now. This is unimaginable. We could have never imagined, adding to, the hottest, driest April, May. It was also, we had, a record red flag warnings and red flag conditions over the same time period. And these measures, and then seeing kind of the extreme going from, like Dennis said, in March of having snow and then extreme drying, and then we went to, an extremely wet period. That transition from that extreme dry to that extreme wet period, that's the most extreme transition for parts of New Mexico that they haven't seen in 130 years since these records have been gathered and monitored. The world is very, very different today than what we thought it was on April 5th.
Yeah. Michiko, why do these investigations take so long? Like with Cerro Pelado, it was like almost a year and a half later that the public found out what had happened.
Oh, wow. Why do they take so long? Well, I can promise you that we're very, very thorough, and we try to take as least amount of time as possible. One of the learnings that came out of the prescribed fire pause was that we need to be more consistent in the way that we investigate origin and causes of fire, as well as escape fires. And so we go through a very long, detailed process just to make sure that we're getting everything right, because we understand the loss, the pain, the trauma, and we want to make sure that when we present our findings to the public, that they can trust those findings, because it's one step that we have to move forward to try to regain that trust is by doing the investigation very thoroughly and putting out information that the public can trust, and that we're not going to come back 3 weeks later and say, actually we uncovered we overturned another rock and found some new information. So I do apologize, because I know that when we have a devastating event like this, the public wants answers and they want them fast, and we certainly understand that. And we also take very seriously our duty to ensure that the information that we put out can be trusted and that we can make good decisions from them.
Yeah, so the black fire in the Gila, 325,000 acres last year, which is also human caused. What do we know what happened there? Do we know anything?
Oh gosh, help me out, Sean and Dennis.
I was on the black fire with one of the incident management teams, and I'll tell you a quick, cool, and maybe not cool, but interesting anecdotal story. I started on the Wilderness Ranger District where that fire was in 2002. The first wildfire I ever been on in my career was called the Black Fire. We caught it at 42 acres or something. The rest of the next 2 summers I was out there doing initial attack in these mountains, and come there 20 years later, I'm on my district, my old boss is still there, and we're on the Black Fire again. That's near the state record in size. And all those fires that we handled and suppressed just have been burnt over, probably maybe a couple times. Right. It's this interesting perspective for me 20 years later about what I was doing in the first part of my career, very exciting and all this stuff, but now as I get older and I see this, it's like, to all that we're talking about through change, with conditions, climate and weather and the extremes. That's what struck me. And then dealing with this very large fire with an incident management team over that kind of ground, it was very challenging. I don't know much about the ignition, but having been there previously and then last summer on, it was a beast, and it was very difficult terrain and very challenging to deal with, just like Hermit's and everything else. And 2 different ignition sources, same result. In a big way.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you all. We need to take a quick break, but up next we'll talk about new protocols for prescribed fire.
Creativity plays a huge role in every aspect of STEM. And bringing arts into it also, I think, expands the pool of interested young people who might not otherwise kind of resonate with just STEM, right?
So during the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire, the Forest Service Chief Randy Moore shut down prescribed fire projects, called for a review, and issued a new protocol for prescribed fire nationally. Dennis, what has changed since 2022 on the ground in New Mexico?
So good question, Laura. Just like I had mentioned in the previous segment about the evolution of change that came post Cerro Grande, we're going through something similar. And this pause, I think, was important to kind of collect our thoughts and put down on paper what some of these things we need to think about are. Without going into extraordinary detail, the things that I'm taking away is wanting a lot more engagement from agency administrators and line officers, being more engaged and knowing more about the projects, being able to speak to them, ask questions, document those questions through the go, no-go processes that we have. We used to talk about drought, but now we're going to formally talk about drought and formally document that conversation. And as Sean said previously as well, having many minds at the table to have a good discussion, and so we're keeping each other in check. More checks and balances to how we move forward with authorization. Now when we're moving through prescribed fire, some other things are acknowledging more resources that'll need to be on scene, with our contingency resources being closer, or not on scene, but closer within 30 minutes response time. And then also that kind of the back end of the prescribed fire, as far as a patrol plan, critical weather step-up plans and things, when we're talking about 4-month holdovers from pile burns, that we know we got to stick with this a lot more intensely, using new technology with infrared systems and things that we can start checking things as we're moving into prescribed fire season.
Yeah. Oh, Michiko.
Oh, well, thank you. I was just thinking that, Dennis, you're just really highlighting some of the additional ways that the Forest Service has changed, to the question that you were asking earlier, Laura. And I think one of the big things that's kind of embedded in what you just said was that the Forest Service is really recognizing the complexity of prescribed fire. And, I remember as a little girl that I would be out in the backyard with my father and we would do pile burnings. And you wouldn't think that this was something so complex. But as Sean and Dennis were earlier talking about how we're finding with the mega drought, the residual heat that just stays in the ground and reignites months after, that's complex in a complexity that we had never seen before. So I think that that's an example of another kind of learning and way that the Forest Service has changed, is really just understanding that we always knew that we had an inherently dangerous job, and now we are just recognizing even more so the complexity that's embedded in because of the changing climate and because of the mega drought.
Yeah. So. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, and to add to what Dennis said, those specifics. But the other part that we're doing is, engaging with the public, is making sure that they're at the table as well. And then that comes in a number of different forms. We're going out and having field trips. If somebody wants to actually go and walk a unit with us, with our fuel specialist, with our burn bosses, we're doing that. Last week we had a town hall meeting in Santa Fe, right at the Aztec Springs community. There we're planning to do a prescribed burn directly adjacent to that community. We want to have one-on-one conversations with those neighbors, with those landowners that are likely most directly affected. We're wanting to meet people where they're at and the way they're wanting to do that. Having town halls, having one-on-one conversations, making sure that all of our elected officials at the county level, state level, and national level are understanding. And we had a town hall 2 days ago in Regina, that a lot of the feedback we got, even from some of the elected officials, like their staff members, was, wow, we didn't realize all of the prep work and the thought and the preparation that goes into conducting a prescribed burn. And so wanting to engage with the communities that we serve in a very meaningful way, to hear their concerns, to make sure that, is there a blind spot that we're not aware of, that they might know because they live right there, that we're listening to them and engaging in that and adjusting course.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about, because I've looked at some of the old prescribed fire plans, they're long. There's like a lot of planning that goes into them. They're complex. Does the Forest Service empower people on the ground to push back if conditions aren't right or if something goes wrong?
Absolutely. It's this talk of pressure that's out there. I think it's convoluted in some ways sometimes. We all know what we're up against with everything, but never in my experience has there been pressure to light a match. The pressure we do put on each other is to get something ready. And that's a message that we've sent through our ranks, from the archaeologist or biologist to the burn boss or the agency administrator, is you need to have the project ready. Get the compliance work done, get the preparation work done, so that you have the advantage to take advantage, to be able to take advantage of a window when it comes. But never pressure to say it's time to light this spring. No. But this is where the
Dennis,
more...
wouldn't you see that's one of the changes too that we've experienced, that now before you do a prescribed burn, if it's a multi-day, every single day folks are empowered to
and then what we were talking about is like having discussion not just with the agency administrator, but the firing and holding bosses, and making sure and documenting that this plan that we're about to embark on is bought in by everybody who's involved. I think these conversations that we keep touching on, and the more formal and documented conversations and having the minds at the table, are very important. One comment I do want to bring up too is the timing of this tragedy is interesting with the wildfire crisis strategy, and that one thing that I see the agency doing, it would have probably still went on without this, but we're starting to think about and treat prescribed fire as the same crisis as we see wildfires unfolding. And I see the level of support starting to come from the agency and the coordination for resources, funding, all these different things that's coming together coincidentally with the timing of this strategy, but to really give the planned prescribed fire work where it's in our court to pick the time and place and conditions, we're starting to get the attention we need to focus more on it the way we need to.
So, and the Forest Service is not unique this way, but I've been covering environmental issues for like more than 20 years, and I see how slow agencies like the Forest Service are to change. And, you know, from an outsider's perspective, it's easy for me to say, holy smokes, conditions and life basically on this planet has changed faster than some of our agencies have. Does the Forest Service have the capacity and the political will to really make these changes to keep up with what's happening on the forests?
Absolutely. I think like Dennis said, you know, we have a very clear priority across the agency to focus and address the wildfire crisis. The health of our forests, and frankly, the health of our forests gets to the health and safety of our public, right? And so it is very clear from a priority standpoint of the agency. The Congress has come through and appropriated. I think there's, you know, about $7 billion that have been appropriated to address this crisis head on. And I'm new to the Forest Service, 7 months here, but what I've seen, and so, you know, my tenure has been all change, but I see a huge desire. This is like Dennis and I were talking this morning. He said, this is what I've been hoping for my entire career, was to see this the straight focus on this priority, the health of our forests, the safety of our public, and the resources to get it done. And so I can tell you, our team here on the Santa Fe is very excited and embracing all of the change, and recognizing that you know, we're in this ever-changing environment, and so we can't sit back, and you know, we have to be continually learning over and over again, and making those efforts, and you know, treating our forests the way we need to address this crisis.
Reactive versus proactive.
Yeah.
We acknowledge, we talk about, we haven't touched on it yet, but fire is an inevitable part of our landscape and our ecosystems. It is. What we deal with on the suppression side and in the worst possible conditions when something starts in an unwanted time and place is reactive. And we still are going to continue to do that. We'll have to do that and give attention. But the likelihood of success on some of those events and the way they're unfolding, we're going to see more values and infrastructures in danger or lost or threatened, or more lost, I guess. But just thinking about this on the proactive side, and this is what we're going for. And like I do, this is a great opportunity, this wildfire crisis strategy. We have a long way to go because of what happened with building trust and being transparent and engaging our public. And it's a good thing. It's forcing us that direction because that's where we need to be. But to be on the proactive side and having the choice, knowing fire is part of the system, to be able to pick the time and the place and the conditions and the right resources with all these changes that we're going to start incorporating and learn from last year, our odds are way better. We talk about 99.8 whatever % of success. And it's not getting hung up on something that happened last year. We have to get hung up on that to make sure that we minimize the chance of that ever happening again. We can't promise that it won't ever happen again, that a fire won't escape. But the odds in defending our values at risk, our communities, our ecosystems, our watershed, our tribal lands, everything, we have a much better chance if we can pick the time and place to reintroduce fire versus being at the mercy. If conditions keep changing and getting more extreme, we're not having great success in these suppression events.
Well, so that's something that I would like for you to talk about a little bit. You know, there were people even before Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon, who were going to oppose prescribed fire projects. Looking at a place like, for example, the Santa Fe watershed or any number of packed forests in New Mexico, if you couldn't use prescribed fire, what other tools are there?
So the initiation of that project was before my time, but the person who was greatly involved with it was my mentor, and I spent a lot of time in there with him, the district, and all the treatments that went on to bring it to the condition it's in now. A lot of discussion was had about removal and mechanical work and this type of thing. And all that I've learned in my career, and then what you find is that watershed, there's one road in the bottom, and you're talking a 1,200-foot climb at 80%, 60% slope up to the ridge lines. There's no access. The tiny road that goes up there through Canyon Road, you're not going to haul log trucks down there. So like mechanical removal was not really a feasible option there, but as I've learned over 20 years, and not just the watershed, but everywhere, it's just not about removal and cutting. You create activity fuel when you cut, something that's maybe more volatile for burning after you manipulate it. And then we have to think about the ecology and what we know about the fire ecology of our mountains and what role it played. And we know that we have a lot of landscapes that were considered frequent fire forests where fire was the recycler for this dead wood accumulation. It pruned the live trees, it kept the live tree densities in check, and it promoted more open stands. We can't replace that with mechanical work alone. That's what I've learned through my career, and I think the agency is on board with that and understanding. All tools are on the table when it comes to implementing these treatments, but we won't be successful with the wildfire crisis strategy in defense of our values at risk and the things that we care about without fire as part of the plan.
Right, okay. Thanks again. We will be back in 15 minutes for one final time to wrap up this conversation.
We can't take away the pain and the loss, but I think that what we can do is promise to the community that we will be there and walk with them into a future into a future of repair, restoration, and rehabilitation. So I think that's what we can do, and we are, along with our federal partners, trying to do the most that we can to ensure that that we are helping folks become whole, that they are recovering what they've lost to the best extent that we can.
The third part of Laura's conversation with U.S. Forest Service officials is coming up in less than 15 minutes. Right now, we move on to a discussion about STEAM education. You're probably familiar with STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but there's a growing push to add an A for arts into the mix. STEAM education is about applying creative thinking to STEM projects along with real-world problem solving. This week, executive producer Jeff Proctor speaks with Dr. Shelley Grunig, who runs a STEM nonprofit and works with young people to help spark interest in new technology, and Karen Kinsman, who's been expanding and diversifying the UNM STEM-H Center through pre-college STEM competitions. Jeff asks them how STEAM education can set New Mexico students up for future success.
Karen, Shelley, thank you both so much for joining me on New Mexico in Focus today.
Absolutely.
So excited.
So I think most viewers will be familiar with STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education, but we are here to talk about STEAM, with the A added in to stand for arts. Karen, what is the big idea behind adding that A?
I think the big idea is to acknowledge the fact that creativity plays a huge role in every aspect of STEM. And bringing arts into it also, I think, expands the pool of interested young people who might not otherwise kind of resonate with just STEM, right?
How recent a development is that to have added that A? I know when I talk to a lot of folks, they don't know STEAM when that gets mentioned.
I don't know, Shelley, how long has
I
it
first
been?
heard about it at least 15 years ago, but it's always been a little contentious discussion as to what letters get added into STEM. And so I think that that's, a piece of it, why it's been very slow to maybe catch on. And I think that we're finding it more and more now because people are understanding that we need to reach down to younger and younger ages with our STEM education and enrichment programs. And by bringing those youth in at those elementary, pre-K, kindergarten levels, STEAM is a really beautiful way to do that.
Let's stay with you for a moment, Shelley. I want to talk some more about creativity. I like that word in the educational context. I certainly remember as a student in elementary school myself, it felt like that was sort of tamped down in a way. I'm interested in how it has shaped education over the course of the last number of recent years, and what changes you've seen as a result of what sounds like sort of a philosophical shift in the way we teach.
Absolutely. Well, I think that it shaped it by people are understanding, and research is showing us more that creativity is directly linked to innovation. And especially here in New Mexico, we have such an active, innovative community that people are understanding. Of course, in New Mexico, we also have a very active arts community. And so it is kind of this beautiful, beautiful crossroads of merging those together and seeing what the amazing things that can come out of that. But it is influencing our education. And as we see and start to value what is important in, say, the workforce down the road, in our communities, that is then reflected in the education system, I believe. So I don't know if Karen would agree with that, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you founded the STEAM Center for Excellence in Rio Rancho. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came together?
When small children create and make creations, that builds not only their experience and their knowledge, but it also builds their self-confidence. And so that's just been a part of it for us. But then as time has gone on, we've become really great partners. We've had a lot of really great partnerships with arts organizations, like community arts organizations, but we've also been building in other types of arts, media arts. For one example, stop motion animation has been a really important part to communicate ideas, right? And so that's just grown. And this STEAM Center for Excellence really has come through a partnership with the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation and the Encantado Foundation, who got on board and said, we need more of this, not only just to open up to the community, but also to help educators and help prepare them and maybe take the fear out of STEM or the fear out of STEAM, depending on what their background is.
Gotcha. Karen, what are some of the other advantages or practical or mechanical advantages that students get through STEAM education that they might not get in what we think of as sort of a traditional K through 12 learning environment?
Yeah, so I think as Shelley was talking, I was thinking about the fact that we're seeing more and more students, especially who are engaging in research projects or engineering design projects, engaging in that creative process, and also doing a lot more than we saw 20 years ago, interdisciplinary projects, right? Or interdisciplinary work, teamwork. And that creative process it's all part of the research process. It's all part of the engineering design process. I mean, engineering design in and of itself is a creative effort, right? And I think we're starting to see how important it is for students to understand that process and to learn how to engage in it. And I think for especially elementary school teachers and even some middle school teachers, they haven't had a lot of time themselves in science labs or in engineering design themselves, and so it's a little scary. And I think when you sort of couch that a little differently in terms of encouraging the creative process, it's a little less daunting and a little less scary.
Putting all of those ideas that both of you have described together, how can STEAM education and a focus on what we're talking about here today help to address some of the really pressing environmental problems we have in the state?
Well, I mean, we've seen a number of students over the last several years, probably, more heavily in the last 10 years as the topic has become kind of more of a hot button issue. We've seen more and more students doing environmentally focused projects, like pretty serious stuff, looking at what's going on in the New Mexico environment. We've also seen, for instance, Native American students who have done preservation projects. On a number of years ago, a student did a preservation project on eagle feathers, and how do you, because that's such a culturally important piece of their world, and how do you preserve that for forever? How do you make that part of your culture?
Let's throw another letter into our mix of alphabet soup here today. I want to talk about the letter H. So you direct UNM's STEAM H Center, the H standing in for the word health. What do we mean by health in this context?
So we really mean health professions, anything related to health professions. And the maybe controversy over it is, okay, so health professions is still part of STEM. And to be perfectly honest, it started as a piece of the joint institutional support that we get from both the Health Sciences Center and the main campus Office for Research. And so we added that as part of sort of recognition of that partnership initially. But really it is also kind of just recognizing the fact that health professions sort of weave themselves through all of the STEM disciplines.
Integration is sort of the word that keeps coming to mind as we continue the conversation here.
Can I throw one in there too?
Please, of course, yes.
So what I want to say about STEAM, when I think about that A and we talk about it as art, I also think of it as accessibility. It creates accessibility. Like you were saying, it kind of softens that scientific, engineering, mathematics in a way that makes it more accessible to not only our educators, but also our families and our students. And we did an amazing program out in Cuba this summer with girls in our Girls into Tech program. And they just grab on to that A, especially, but then helping them to see how they can take this art project that they're working on and use thread that's going to be conductive, right, and create lights, and that just really grabs at their heart, especially those kids in our state in particular that are in underserved areas. And I think it's so important, and that relates back to the whole issue of taking care of our state, right? How do we take care of our state? How do we equip our kids to take care of the environment and to care about that? And like you said, Karen, like just being able to empower them is such an important part of that.
My last question, and I'll ask you both to weigh in on this one. Are there other factors or conditions maybe in New Mexico that make this sort of a unique place to introduce these kinds of topics? Or is this more universal? Are STEAM and STEM-H concepts or philosophies around teaching children that should apply more universally?
Well, I think we're at the heart of STEAM education and enrichment for the country. I think that we are leading that movement in many ways, whether it's STEAM because, at the labs we're using computer-aided design and designing really life-changing national security equipment, yet that's still connected to art and creativity, right, and innovation. Or whether it's our jewelry makers that are using technical ways of creating art for themselves. The two women who are up in Taos using cement to build 3D printed homes, right? That is those are all unique things. And in a way, I think most of us New Mexicans like to pride ourselves for still being a little bit of the Wild West, right? And wanting to impact change across the country. And we are really at the crossroads. We could talk about that for a long time, but I'm sure Karen.
I think one of the things I never knew about Sandia Labs that I found out last year is they have an amazing makerspace. And it's available to anybody who has base access. And they have everything you can imagine, and someone there who's managing that space and training people how to use the equipment. And they're taking, the Sandia employees are coming in using that makerspace and taking what they're making back to their work, right? So I think that's another way that, that Sandia Lab in particular has recognized the importance of promoting creativity and helping even their own employees understand, what you're doing requires a creative process. And so let's provide you with another outlet for seeing how that can happen, right? I also think that another way we're sort of at the forefront is if you can see it, you can be it. That's kind of always in the back of my mind with the students that we're working with, is how do we provide opportunities where the student can say, I can see myself being like that, right? And not just presenting them with what's in the back of their minds, right? Most young students will still, if you say draw a scientist, they'll still draw Albert Einstein, basically, right? And so it's important, I know Shelley and I have talked about this before, it's important to us to provide opportunities for students to engage with young STEM professionals so that they can go, oh, I could do that.
Karen, Shelley, thank you both for shining a little light on this for our viewers today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Jeff, Karen Kinsman, and Dr. Shelley Grunig for that conversation. We have more information about R4 Creating and the UNM STEMH Center on our social media pages and on the New Mexico in Focus YouTube page. Now, back to Our Land senior producer Laura Paskus and her conversation with leadership from the U.S. Forest Service. Laura asks how the agency is working to build public trust as it adapts its fire and forest management in the Southwest's warming climate.
I think it's fair to say that there has always been some tension between the Forest Service and communities, particularly in northern New Mexico. Sean, you are from Las Vegas, but fairly new to the job as forest supervisor on the Santa Fe. What are you doing in your role to be building trust?
My most important thing, and it's the priority for me and for our team on the Santa Fe, is to focus on trust. And what I've shared with the team is two things, that if we focus on these two approaches, that we will be building trust. And one is to know and relate to our community, and the other is to be a community asset. And knowing and relating to the community, one is to be a part of the community, and many of our team lives in the communities, and many of our team members have very deep roots in the communities as well, many generations. And so being a part of the community, meeting with people one-on-one and engaging. One thing that I've heard a bit of feedback is making sure that our folks are living in the communities that they serve, because they don't want to just be seen in the rearview mirror at the end of the workday or on a Friday, and really live there, experience the struggles, also experience the successes, is get out and meet one-on-one. And so that's been really important for me. I've gone out and done tours of the Hermit's Peak, Half Canyon, Burn Scar with locals and gone. And David Martinez, I think he was ProPublica did a story about him and his plight and not finding a house. I've gone and sat in his trailer with him in Monteplanao and just wanted to hear his story and see how we could help. Now the Forest Service, we couldn't build him a house, but you know what? We helped fix the road to Monteplanao. That's access to the forest, and it's something that we could do. And so that's like an example of then being that asset, is knowing and relating and understanding our communities. Understanding here in northern New Mexico, we have extremely deep ties and connections to the land, whether it's our tribal communities or historic land grant communities, and understanding and recognizing that just how important the land is. one of my friends, Max Trejo, County Commissioner in San Miguel County, said, that we are a people of the land, and understanding that great connection with the land, and all that the land has provided. Our tribal partners for time immemorial, and the land grant communities for centuries, providing firewood, herb gathering, piñon picking, grazing, hunting, fishing, you name it. People have been living on the land in together as one. And so then the Forest Service, what can we do to help facilitate that? How does that asset come in? And so when we say we're going to do something, we need to follow up and do it and be very transparent. That again comes back to those conversations, whether they're one-on-one conversations, whether they're town hall type conversations, whether they're field trips in our units. Maybe it's going and walking, a fence line with the landowner and understanding what might be going on there, and then taking that information and translating. It's like, okay, well, what can we do to help facilitate firewood? Firewood is an incredible necessary resource for the people in northern New Mexico. That's how most people heat their homes. So we're converting a lot of the hazard trees right now on the burn scar, and taking them and getting them and making it all available, free wood permits, things like that, where people could come out into the forest. But we're also working with Mora County and the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program to get wood hauled to communities. We hauled a bunch of wood last year from the fire, like to Romesa and to the community there in Pecos. We're looking to haul more wood to Mora this year, and also with the Neighbors Helping Neighbors, getting wood to those processors that then they're able to get to those elderly folks and folks that might not be able to go get wood on their own. And so I think from a combination of knowing and relating and understanding the needs of the community, and then putting it into action, and the Forest Service really being a helper in that asset, I think is a recipe for building that trust with these communities. We're not going to fix our wildfire crisis without the support and help of our communities.
Right. So I feel like this maybe isn't something that federal officials typically talk about. And certainly, FEMA is the agency that's working on rebuilding and that sort of thing. But I'd like to know what the Forest Service is doing in terms of reconciliation and healing with communities.
Yeah, Laura, thank you for your question. And I think it really goes to what Sean was sharing just a moment ago, that part of reconciliation and part of healing is recognizing our part that led into the devastating fire, and sharing and being a part of the solution, right? Being a part of working with the community to help rebuild lives and livelihoods post-fire. We can't take away the pain and the loss, but I think that what we can do is promise to the community that we will be there and walk with them into a future into a future of repair, restoration, and rehabilitation. So I think that's what we can do, and we are, along with our federal partners, trying to do the most that we can to ensure that that we are helping folks become whole, that they are recovering what they've lost to the best extent that we can. I know it's not perfect, and it's been a long, long road, but as Sean said, really just trying to understand what we can do to help people, and then delivering on that.
Yeah, and Dennis, I know these issues are really important to you, and we've talked about them over the years, but why should anyone trust the Forest Service when it comes to prescribed fires?
It's a great question. Everybody said we got a lot of work to do, there's no question, but why should they? I kind of touched on it, I think, earlier, in that fire is part of our system. It's part of our backyard. It's just like hunting and fishing and all the wood gathering, everything else. Fire is part of this too. We're not going to be able to live without it. Sean touched on something very important. It's a societal problem. It's just not a Forest Service problem, but we're the stewards. We're the ones responsible. I would say, why should we be trusted? Because the alternatives aren't very good. If we think a fire is inevitable, and having it play out under its own circumstances isn't a good option, I don't think. It's not just here in New Mexico, but we see it across the West. There's places that are in danger. There's some places that are going to be in dire straits. We don't know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen in our lifetime, but all the ingredients are there for something bad to happen. So by working with the communities, rebuilding the trust, the big one for me is transparency about what, when, and where we're doing, building those relationships, like the community meeting in Santa Fe the other day was great. Concerned landowners asking hard questions. And they weren't combative, but they really wanted to know, and it was a great conversation. And that's the model I see moving forward, is continuing this level of engagement to build that trust and understand that fire is part of our landscape. And in my opinion, I know people don't trust the government for a variety of different reasons. This situation is very complex, but we know the alternative. I think our situation is still going to be better with all the things that we can change moving forward from this disaster, integrating with our community, building that support, and using the tools necessary to do it more on our terms versus being at the mercy of Mother Nature.
So we've talked a little bit about transparency and, the town hall meeting and stuff like that. I had been asking the Forest Service since April 2022 to have on-air conversations about Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon, prescribed fire, climate change. And it's taken a year and a half for that conversation to happen. What is the Forest Service doing in terms of better transparency with the press?
Oh, that's a great question, and I hope this is an example of really just being available, being open, and willing to talk. And I apologize that it took so long for us to get here, but certainly would invite additional conversations, should you want them, and we won't make you wait a year and a half again. So I think that, so sorry that it did take so long. Everything, even from the way that we work with the press during suppression to the kinds of engagements that Sean's talking about when we have a prescribed fire, we are really just throwing, lifting up the curtain, throwing the room open, and just inviting people in, because we see that as a necessary step towards rebuilding trust with the community. So hold us to that, and I mean that. Hold us to it.
So we've been talking a lot about policies and protocols and changes and big overwhelming issues, but sort of at the end of the day, we are all just 4 human beings sitting around a table together. And certainly so many New Mexicans' lives have been impacted. I'd like to start with you, Sean. What do you want to say to New Mexicans about last year and also about the future of fire in New Mexico's forests?
Yeah, I think taking a cue from like Michiko and say, one is to apologize for the Forest Service's role last year. I was working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Washington, D.C., and last April, watching the briefings and everything going on so far away was pretty helpless feeling for me. And my parents were evacuated for, I think, a total about 5 weeks. Got a cousin that lost a home, numerous friends and family evacuated, and I've seen a lot of the devastation and destruction that occurred because of last year. And it's really difficult, and I can't put into words the feeling that I have, and I can't even imagine those that lost everything, and their lives will be forever changed. So I totally recognize that, and what my commitment is, and I guess I should go back and say it actually changed my life as well, because it changed my trajectory to find a way. I'd been trying to find a way to come back home, and there was an opportunity to come home and help, to help try to heal, to help recover, restore, and to really think about the possibilities in the future and how we can live together and work together, knowing just how important the land is to people in northern New Mexico. And as Dennis said, the stewards that have been entrusted this responsibility with the Forest Service, it's not a responsibility that we take very lightly, and that we are committed to being part of the communities, and that we're committed to working with our communities to address the crisis that's before us, and to really heal, recover, restore, and build a really new future for northern New Mexico together.
Right. Dennis, the future of fire in New Mexico.
It will be here, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to engage on, and it's going to be part of our lives. The future of fire. I think I've touched on it before. It's this reactive versus proactive thing, and I'll touch on it again. If again, building the trust, having the transparent conversations, engaging, making this a cultural shift here in New Mexico to accept and acknowledge and deal with fire together, not just the agency in a vacuum, but trying to be transparent. There aren't very good options for us, but we know, like from Cerro Pilado, the story's not out there yet, and I'm glad I have one more time slot here. The irony of that what happened in that fire, the escape prescribed fire, but the interactions with the treatments from the landscape project there that happened in the early 2010s, up against over almost a 40-mile-an-hour wind, steered fire away from that community because of the cutting and burning treatments. This stuff works. I want that to be the future of fire in New Mexico, where we have successes like that we're invited to talk about and share about. And I want people to know that these kind of treatments work, and by working together and focusing and prioritizing where we place these treatments, they do work, they do have an effect, and it's a way that we're going to be able to live with fire going into changing times in the future.
Michiko, we are out of time, but last words.
Yeah, thank you. I won't sugarcoat it. We are in a wildfire crisis. New Mexico is in a wildfire crisis. The good news, though, is that we know what to do about it. You know, Dennis has talked about mechanical thinning, prescribed fire. So we know what to do in order to help the 5 national forests in New Mexico be healthy and be resilient. And working together with our residents of New Mexico, we can get there. So I am very optimistic about the future, but it starts with commitment to addressing the wildfire crisis that's before us right now.
Well, thank you all for coming in to have this important conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you to Laura and to the U.S. Forest Service for making all 3 of our guests available. Laura has been covering the federal government's fire protocols for years now. You can watch all of her coverage, including a story about the growing fire risk in the Cibola National Forest in the Sandia Mountains. It's all on the Our Land YouTube page. Now, we'll close the show today with news on updated COVID-19 vaccines, available at doctors' offices, pharmacies, and public health offices. State Health Director Miranda Durham says everyone 6 months and older should get vaccinated regardless of prior COVID-19 shots. RSV and the flu haven't hit New Mexico hard, yet anyway, but COVID hospitalizations are rising. Cases aren't at pandemic levels, but vaccine rates have declined, which is raising concerns for doctors. Most insurance plans cover the booster, but if you're not insured, the easiest way to get vaccinated is through the CDC's Bridge Access Program. It offers limited free shots through the end of December 2024. Major pharmacies, including Walgreens and CVS, are participating. The Vaccines for Children program also provides doses to children whose parents may not be able to afford them. You can find your nearest vaccine provider at vaccinenm.org. And just this week, the State Health Department announced that all New Mexicans can get 4 free at-home tests by visiting covidtests.gov. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by the viewers like you.